so there's still more reporting about Gina Carano's wrongful termination lawsuit against Disney. And here's where things get interesting. Gina is about to call witnesses to the stand to possibly testify against Disney. Obviously, they will be under threat of perjury to tell the truth in court. And some of the people that may be called to the stand include Pedro Pascal, Jon Favreau, Bob Chapek, who was CEO at the time of her firing, as well as Kathleen Kennedy herself, Bear Grylls, who she actually did a production with while she was still at Disney, and
after she left, they scrapped it, and then it eventually aired.
And then Lynn Hale, the engineer of the publicity campaign behind Star Wars. So I haven't heard of that one. Did you?
That's a new one to me.
Okay. But just the thought of her having Kathleen Kennedy like block out a whole day to fly out.
Even if I lose this lawsuit, the fact that I'm inconveniencing her
it's like,
is enough.
It's just sweet victory enough to inconvenience the people that threw her under the bus.
She just wants it to fall on Kathleen Kennedy's birthday so that she has to come to court on her birthday and be busy.
And you know what? I know that she's said so many positive things about Pedro Pascal and how they're still friends to this day, still in contact somewhat frequently. And, you know, she says she's had nothing but positive experiences. He said the same thing, vice versa. I still think Pedro Pascal deserves to have this televised and to admit the double standard treatment that he has received from Disney, because he chose to throw her under the bus. We already know this from what she said publicly. She said in her interview with The Hollywood Reporter earlier this year that Pedro Pascal was the person who offered to teach her the basics of gender ideology. And he told her to just put hashtag trans rights in her bio and people will leave you alone. That's actually a quote.
Yep, I remember that. It's like the whole point is like you don't have to actually believe it. It's not about believing anything. It's about capitulation.
So not only is he not even sincere in these beliefs that he espouses, like all of these woke beliefs that he espouses, or even if
he is, but he understands that there's only so far that he can go as far as somebody who believes it. He understands that the mob will come for you even if you don't, and he has enough common sense to tell you, you don't have to believe it like I do, but you do have to bend your knee to these crazy people.
Yeah, which
is even more nefarious.
He totally understands that all of the beliefs he espouses publicly carry social benefits.
Correct.
And does that not, you know, factor into why you are so politically outspoken, Pedro?
Oh, in the chat, somebody says mansplaining Mando. Yeah, so the Mandalorian was mansplaining to Gina Carano how to listen and do better.
Literally, that's exactly the words she used. He told her to put hashtag trans rights in her bio and just do it and people will leave you alone. That is literally the fact.
But the thing is, then it doesn't. The problem is once you attach your name to these types of causes, it is now going to play a part in everything you do forever. So every movie role will be inspected to make sure that it's fair to trans rights. Every single comment you make about anything will be dissected through the lens of gender ideology because you put your stamp on it. So they both simultaneously force you to do it by threat of social ostracization, and then judge you for it even though you didn't want to do it in the first place.
Right. So if you put hashtag trans rights in your bio, you are essentially setting yourself up for failure, because eventually you're going to do or say something that doesn't live up to the perfect standard of woke ally. And Gina evidently didn't want to put herself in that position.
And you really are at the mercy of like when it's like picture the mob with, you know, pitchforks and torches roaming a village, and the village is Twitter, right? And your hope is that the mob just doesn't stop by your place. Otherwise, you have to either make a stand or bend the knee. It's kind of like in 2020 when people were just walking around restaurants demanding people, you know, raise their red salute.
Or if you happened to be a public figure or even just a normal, ordinary person during 2020, people would ask you why you didn't
put a black
post
square.
The black square. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't even have to be invited by you, but the smart decision is to try your best to stay out of these issues if you're in the public eye. And Gina Carano was punished for that, but she told us enough to confirm that at the very least, Pedro Pascal is a bad friend who threw her under the bus when it was convenient, didn't defend her when she needed somebody to be in her corner. And his logic was
he has like a sibling that's transgender, right? That's where his empathy comes from, if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that doesn't mean anything. He was still friends with Gina. Mm. And when she needed somebody to publicly come to her defense, because she didn't do anything wrong, he decided to stay silent and enjoy the benefits of the double standard, where he was making all of these extremely politically inflammatory posts, downright dehumanizing people who support Trump, calling them Nazis. Yep. And in calling them Nazis, encouraging violence toward them, because you know that the implication is there. He was never punished for that, I'm sure. He was nothing but celebrated for that. And he knows that there's a double standard because of what he said to Gina behind the scenes. And he threw her under the bus anyway. So at the very least, he's a bad friend. I'm hoping that this could be a moment of redemption, where if he comes to testify for her, he will reveal information that's, helping her case, not hurting it.
How about this? So I remember there was like this big kerfuffle around 2020 where everyone got mad at Chris Pratt because he didn't go to like a celebrity douche canoes for Biden rally. Right? He didn't go to this. And then the Marvel actors came and defended him. All the Marvel actors that did go, right? And said, he wasn't even asked to go. It's fine. It's not a big deal. James Gunn is an example of someone who has defended everyone that he's worked with, no matter what. And those dudes, like when James Gunn, like him or not, like them or not, like when they were firing him from Marvel, most of those actors said, we're just not going to we won't do another Marvel movie without James Gunn.
Yeah, and whether or not you feel some type of way about his past creepy posts on Twitter.
But that was the loyalty.
The loyalty was returned to him when it mattered most, clearly.
Or even, if I remember correctly, Robert Downey Jr. was at that, celebrity douche canoes for Biden rally or whatever it was. If I remember correctly, somebody can fact check me on that if I'm wrong. But if he was, just think about this. So Robert Downey Jr., if he took a side there, was in Oppenheimer. But then James Woods is then told, you cannot, you have to stay silent on this movie because of your political views.
Mm-hmm. It's always unequal enforcement. But
somebody fact check me on that. I'm pulling that out. Like, somebody fact check me on that. Was Robert Downey Jr. at that? I thought he was, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah. So they went into detail about what Pedro Pascal might be called to testify on specifically. I think the main issue that they'll be asking Pedro about is the contested issue of gender discrimination. Was Disney guilty of gender discrimination against Gina Carano and in favor of Pedro Pascal and her male co-stars? So in her lawsuit, she provided an abundance of receipts about Pedro Pascal's inflammatory posts and the fact that Disney turned a blind eye to those. He made offensive and denigrating statements toward Republicans, and she was fired for her cultural and religious beliefs. And she pointed specifically to a post he made in 2017 comparing the former president, Trump, to Hitler. Other posts compared the U.S. response to illegal immigrants entering the country to German concentration camps. And as for why Jon Favreau would be called to testify, he would need to answer questions about whether Disney greenlit plans for the Rangers of the New Republic spinoff that would have featured Cara Dune as one of its lead characters. And Kathleen Kennedy confirmed that production title in 2020. And then Bear Grylls would be called to testify over allegations that Disney pulled her episode of Running Wild with Bear Grylls after she was terminated.
Yeah. But then they eventually put that episode out, right?
They eventually did after she was already gone.
I was right. I'm sorry. I went back and I fact-checked myself. Avenger stars encourage fans to vote blue during Biden fundraiser. I see Russos. I see Paul Rudd. I see Robert Downey Jr., Zoe Saldana, Kamala Harris, Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Don Cheadle, Chris Evans. The whole gang is there.
Yep.
So I was
all
not,
the familiar faces.
I was not wrong, and I am not fake news.
They say she might also call the Lucasfilm VP of Animation and Live Action Development, Carrie Beck, and Disney Executive VP of Communications, Paul Roeder. But the other names I'm not familiar with. I just really hope that this is televised. Are they going to?
I don't know. I mean,
are they going to televise this?
Like, well, here's the thing. Like we were asking why the Robert Downey Jr. trial, why the Johnny Depp trial got such a big response, and I think you're right. That it was a proxy war for the current issues between men and women and the Me Too controversy. I don't know if this will pull it's a pretty terminally online thing to look at Disney the way that we look at it now, because we're paying very, very close attention. People have stopped going to Disney movies as much. They're not doing as well, but I don't think it's because the average person is looking so deeply at Disney that they think that there's some satanic evil cult. They're just not interested in the crap that they're putting out these days.
Well, if this has the potential to become like a viral moment, if it's televised,
this would be a deposition, this wouldn't be part of the trial initially, right? It would be like a deposition before the trial.
I wouldn't know personally, but I don't have the expertise. But the Depp Heard trial became a reckoning for Me Too.
Correct.
So I guess that if this one, got live streamed and made into a bunch of memes, it would be a reckoning for wokeness.
Yeah.
That's an equally big issue, I think, that people talk about, at least these days.
Yeah. And
more than Me Too, actually.
The Pedro Pascal is the clearest example of the double standard, right? And I feel like maybe it is one of those things, like the average person, if they're not severely politically inclined, they might see it as gender discrimination rather than simple political discrimination.
No, she totally wasn't discriminated against for her gender, in my opinion, but she was obviously discriminated against for her politics.
But I'm saying that the average person who isn't as aware that these companies are as politically motivated as they are might not see it that way.
Right.
It might click easier for a person to see it as, well, he's the actor. He's the big name male actor. They're not aware that Disney and Lucasfilm.
And he looks white.
Yes, exactly. Are as political as they are.
Yeah.
And that she wouldn't bend the knee.
Well, I am interested to see where this goes. It feels like it's been a long time coming. So I hope that this does pan out. Like she actually will.
I want to see
Kathleen Kennedy in there.
I want to see Kathleen Kennedy be forced to
watch Kathleen Kennedy put on one of those chemical peels on her face before she goes in to testify.
To establish dominance.
Just to establish dominance, of course. And her face will be like peeling off like a snake the entire time because.
She's like, oh, did I have something to do today? Oh, I guess I'll show up.
I'll show up. I was in town anyway.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.